Welcome to Hollywood Graveyard, where we set out to remember and celebrate the lives of those who lived to entertain us by visiting their final resting places. Today we're revisiting Holy Cross Cemetery, where we'll find such stars as Mary Wilson, Dwayne Hickman, Joan Leslie, Gene Lockhart, and many more. Join us, won't you? Welcome back to Holy Cross, a Catholic cemetery in Culver City, California, about 10 miles southwest of Hollywood. We first visited Holy Cross in a series of 3 videos way back in 2017, making Holy Cross the last of the major cemeteries in LA that we haven't revisited in a follow-up video. So needless to say, we are long overdue, especially given the number of notable folks resting here. Last time, we found legends here like Bela Lugosi, John Candy, Bing Crosby, Sharon Tate, Rita Hayworth, Loretta Young, Rosalind Russell, and many, many more. We're back again today to find some stars we missed the first time around, as well as some of those we've lost since. If you haven't done so already, be sure to check out our first 3 videos of Holy Cross. We'll begin our tour today at the first section before you to the left as you enter the cemetery, Section D. Not far in from the road is Alfred Reginald Natzler, better known as Reggie Nalder, a name familiar to you horror aficionados. He was a distinctive character actor in the 40s to the 90s, whose haunting demeanor and visage led him to being called the face that launched 1,000 trips. He played an assassin in Hitchcock's The Man Who Knew Too Much, and in Salem's Lot, he played the main antagonist, a vampire. Other films include Mark of the Devil, and he made appearances on shows like Star Trek and Thriller. Reggie died from cancer at age 84, and despite not being Catholic, was laid to rest here alongside his mother and brother. Their grave remained unmarked until 2017, when this marker was placed. Moving on up the hill now, we reach the grotto section, where quite a few stars are laid to rest, as you'll recall from our previous video. Let's find a few more folks sharing these storied grounds. In part 1, we visited actress Benita Granville. Resting next to her is her husband, Jack Rather. Jack was an oil millionaire who used his wealth to produce film and television shows. He bought the rights to The Lone Ranger, producing the film and TV adaptations in the 50s and 60s. He'd go on to produce other shows, including Lassie, an immensely popular series that ran for more than 400 episodes in the 50s to the 70s. Jack was also responsible for building the Disneyland Hotel, which opened in 1955. He lived to be 66, passing away from cancer in 1984. Heading west, be sure to stop off and say hello to the turtles in the pond. The centerpiece here is the grotto, featuring an altar and shrines to saints, and among them is a shrine to tragic Hollywood actress Sharon Tate, buried nearby. In fact, our next stop is actually Sharon's neighbors, Jim and Marian Jordan. The comedic duo began performing together on vaudeville before breaking into radio. They became national treasures, creating and starring in the weekly radio sitcom Fibber McGee and Molly, beginning in 1935. Jim played Fibber McGee, and Marian played Molly.
Well, that's that, I guess. That's
Oh, McGee, what are you doing? You're tearing up your manuscript and it was almost done.
Well, it's no good now, Snooky.
Why isn't it? There are other actors besides Gregory Peck and Marcia Hunt.
Not for this picture. How can you do the story of the typewriter without Hunt and Peck?
The show was a hit, and would lead to film adaptations in the 30s and 40s, which also starred Jim and Marian. Later in life, Jim would voice Orville in Disney's The Rescuers. Marian died from cancer at age 62. Jim died after suffering a stroke at age 91. Behind the grotto north is Section F. Not far north of Loretta Young, we find an icon of LA sports, Chick Hearn. He was a sportscaster, the play-by-play announcer for the professional basketball team, the Los Angeles Lakers, for some 41 years. He broadcast more than 3,000 consecutive games beginning in 1965. In 2003, Hearn became the first sportscaster inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. He even has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Chick Hearn was 85 when he died from injuries after a fall. Across the street south of here is Section D again. We're in the northeast corner now. Down from the road several spaces is the grave of Gene Lockhart. He was an actor, playwright, and songwriter. His career began on Broadway in the early 20th century, both as an actor and a playwright and lyricist. Notable performances include in the plays Ah Wilderness and Death of a Salesman. On the big screen, he played Sheriff Hartwell in His Girl Friday and the Judge in Miracle on 34th Street.
Since the United States government declares this man to be Santa Claus, this court will not dispute it. Case dismissed.
And Gene would be nominated for an Oscar for his performance in the 1938 film Algiers. He died from a coronary thrombosis at age 65. Gene rests next to his wife Kathleen, also an actress of stage and screen. She appeared alongside her husband as Mrs. Cratchit to Gene's Bob Cratchit in 1938's A Christmas Carol. Other films include Sweethearts and The Glenn Miller Story. Kathleen retired by 1960 and lived to be 83. Gene and Kathleen's daughter, June Lockhart, also became a noted actress, remembered for her roles in shows like Lassie and Lost in Space. June passed away last October and was reportedly laid to rest in this same section. However, her grave is not yet marked, so we will wait until her grave is marked and confirmed before we feature her in a video. South in this same section several rows is the grave of Edgar Kennedy. He was a comedic character actor who was prolific in his output, with close to 500 credits to his name. In the 1930s, he headlined a popular series of comedy shorts, the Edgar Kennedy Shorts, making 6 a year for some 17 years, set to the theme of chopsticks. In it, he portrayed the average man driven to exasperation in a style he popularized known as slow burn. Edgar would go on to become a noted supporting player to the Marx Brothers in films like Duck Soup, and to Laurel and Hardy in films like Night Owls. Other films include A Star is Born and San Francisco. Edgar was just 58 when he died from cancer. The next section north is Section L. Near the northwest side is the grave of Alejandro Rey. He was an Argentine-American actor known particularly for his work on television. In the 60s and 70s, he played casino owner Carlos on the TV series The Flying Nun. He'd go on to play Carl Duvall on the soap opera Days of Our Lives, and later Captain Luis Rueda on Dallas. He also appeared alongside Elvis in the 1963 film Fun in Acapulco. Alejandro died from cancer at just 57. Straight west across the street is Section T. If we head in from the western road several rows, we find the grave of Richard Arlen. As an actor, he's best remembered for playing pilot David Armstrong in the landmark 1927 film Wings. He'd go on to have notable roles in films like The Virginian and Island of Lost Souls. In the late 30s and 40s, he teamed up with Andy Devine, headlining a popular series of action comedies. Later in his career, he specialized in Western films and made a few appearances on television as well, including Petticoat Junction. Richard died from emphysema at age 76. The northwesternmost section of the cemetery is Section Z. Not far in from the corner of the wall is the grave of Christine McIntyre. The actress is particularly remembered today for her appearances as the beautiful blonde in quite a few Three Stooges short comedies, a whopping 27 to be precise, making her something of a fourth female stooge.
Your cousin Basil?
Well, then who is?
I was just...
How dare you pretend to be my cousin Basil? I'll teach you a thing or two. You won't! Don't you dare strike me! Taking advantage of a poor, weak, helpless woman!
Boy, his kisses are getting louder.
You horrible person, you!
Outside the Stooges, she appeared in films like Newshounds and Border Buckaroos. Christine retired from acting in the 50s and lived to be 73. She rests here alongside her husband, J. Donald Wilson. He was a writer, known for creating the radio show The Whistler, which would later be made into a film. He also did voice work, unofficially voicing Mickey Mouse on a few radio broadcasts in the 30s, and narrating The Reluctant Dragon. Donald died at age 79 in 1984. Let's cross the street east and exercise our quads and calves, scaling Section R to find the grave of Emmaline Henry, a name and face familiar to television audiences in the 60s and 70s. She played Mrs. Bellows on I Dream of Jeannie, and Kate Dickens on I'm Dickens, He's Fenster. She also played Nora Grady alongside Mickey Rooney on Mickey, and made appearances on shows like Green Acres, The Red Skelton Hour, and Three's Company. On film, she played Elise in Rosemary's Baby. Emmaline was just 50 when she died from a brain tumor. South of the mausoleum, we reach Section P. Right near the middle of this lawn, just past a tree, is the grave of Frank Albertson. He was a busy actor in the 20s to the 60s, appearing in close to 200 productions. He's remembered today for roles in several classics, including as Sam Wainwright in It's a Wonderful Life and Tom Cassidy in Psycho. Other notable films include Man-Made Monster and Bye Bye Birdie. Earlier in his career, he had been a leading man in films like Wild Company and Big Business Girl with Loretta Young. When television came around, Frank didn't miss a beat in making his way to the small screen, appearing in most of the major shows of the 50s and 60s. Frank died in his sleep from a heart attack at age 55. He has a rare death date, February 29th, a leap day. Let's make our way now to the beautiful and colorful Holy Cross Mausoleum. Before heading inside, I want to point out a curiosity that maybe you've noticed if you've visited this site. Right here on the outer wall of the mausoleum is an honest-to-goodness old-school payphone, maybe one of the last in LA. And it's not just a vestigial relic from the past, it's fully functional. I picked it up and there was an actual dial tone, a memory-unlocking soundscape from yesteryear. I've never seen a payphone on a mausoleum before, so what's the purpose of this mausoleum phone? Maybe for a mere 50 cents, you can call up the occupants of the mausoleum for a little chat. Fanciful thinking? Perhaps, but this is Hollywood after all.
Hello? Hello?
Now then, into the mausoleum we go. Straight in from the entrance is the main chapel, Sanctuary of the Risen Christ. Halfway in on the left is the crypt of Dwayne Hickman. Television audiences remember him best as Dobie Gillis. He played the love-struck teenager in the sitcom The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis in the 50s and 60s in some 148 episodes.
Dobie! Dobie. Oh, hi. I was just practicing a few expressions. For tonight. School play tryouts, 8 o'clock sharp. Come one, come all. The drama club needs your support.
Before that, he starred as Chuck on The Bob Cummings Show. The quintessential teen of the era, Dwayne also appeared in teen comedy films like Ski Party and How to Stuff a Wild Bikini. Outside of acting, Dwayne was also an accomplished painter. He died from Parkinson's disease at age 87. Across the aisle, high on the wall, is character actor Robert Keith. He performed alongside Marlon Brando in the films The Wild One and Guys and Dolls. He also had a prominent role alongside Rock Hudson and Lauren Bacall in 1956's Written on the Wind. On television, he played Richard Kimball's father on The Fugitive, and his final role was a very memorable performance on one of the Twilight Zone's most iconic episodes, The Masks.
One tries to select a mask that is the antithesis of what the wearer is.
What about your mask, Father?
This is mine, the face of death, because I'm alive, understand? I shall wear the thing that stalks me at this moment.
Robert was briefly married to Peg Entwistle, the actress who tragically took her own life leaping from the H of the Hollywoodland sign. And his son was a noted actor, Brian Keith. Robert lived to be 68. Back to the entrance, let's take a right and follow the hallway to one of the adjacent corridors, block 71 on the left. At the end on the right is Eddie Mannix. He was a notorious figure in early Hollywood, remembered for his long tenure as an executive at MGM during its golden era. He was known particularly as a fixer, one who was paid to cover up movie stars' scandals and colorful private lives, smoothing over potentially embarrassing or criminal activity in order to maintain the public image of the studio. He was known to have connections to organized crime and was rumored to be involved in cover-ups of Hollywood scandals, including the death of Paul Byrne, Jean Harlow's husband, and George Reeves, who was having an affair with Mannix's wife, Toni, an affair he approved of, as he in turn was having an affair with another woman. George Reeves's death by a gunshot wound was ruled self-inflicted, but some have speculated it may have been a hit by Mannix, though there is no evidence to support this theory. Eddie was portrayed by Bob Hoskins in the movie Hollywoodland, and was the inspiration for the Mannix character in the Coen brothers film, Hail Caesar. His wife Toni rests next to him. She was an actress. For a time, she was a Ziegfeld Follies showgirl and appeared in the 1936 film The Great Ziegfeld. But her Hollywood notoriety came with her association with Eddie Mannix and George Reeves. Toni was portrayed by Diane Lane in Hollywoodland. Rounding the corner to the next corridor down, high on the right wall, is Joe Hamilton. He was a television producer, particularly known for his work in comedy. Joe was married to Carol Burnett, and in 1967 they created The Carol Burnett Show, which starred Carol, and was produced by Joe. He also composed the show's main theme. The show won him 3 Emmys from 11 nominations. He'd go on to produce shows for several alums of Carol Burnett, including The Tim Conway Show and Mama's Family, starring Vicki Lawrence. Joe died at 62 from cancer. Let's head up now to the second level of the mausoleum. Here in the columbarium is the niche and urn of Frances Gifford. The lovely brunette had an unconventional entry into the movies. A very bright student, she applied to the UCLA Law School at just 16. She visited a friend making a movie at Samuel Goldwyn Studios. There she was spotted by a talent scout, and Goldwyn himself signed her to a movie contract. Early roles include Stage Door alongside Katharine Hepburn and Ginger Rogers. In 1941, she rose to fame playing The Jungle Girl, a 15-chapter movie serial. And you fans of classic Disney will remember her for her leading role as Doris, a studio artist in The Reluctant Dragon, which is a movie about how animated Disney movies are made.
Oh, anybody can do it. The trained sounds are all on here. You hold these over your vocal cords and move your lips, like this.
Other films include The Glass Key and another jungle movie, Tarzan Triumphs. Frances was in a serious car accident at age 27 that sidelined her career and led to a severe decline in her mental and physical health. She spent decades in various institutions. Frances died from emphysema at age 73. Just outside is a series of open-air courtyards. Up on the second level, we find the crypt of Jo Stafford. She was a singer, one of the most popular of the 40s and 50s. She had a chart-topping hit in the 1952 song, You Belong to Me.
You belong to me.
Topping the charts in both the US and the UK, she became the first female to have a chart-topping hit in the UK. Other hits include Shrimp Boats and Make Love to Me. Her music has been featured in the soundtracks to numerous film and TV programs, like The Irishman and The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. She even had her own TV show, The Jo Stafford Show, in the 50s and 60s. Her work would lead to 3 stars on Hollywood's Walk of Fame and a Grammy. Jo died from heart failure at age 90. Her husband, Paul Weston, was a noted music director, composer, and arranger, known as the father of mood music. Among his popular songs are I Should Care, Day by Day, and Shrimp Boats, performed by his wife. He was music director for shows like The Dinah Shore Show and The Danny Kaye Show, and also provided music and arrangements for films like Road to Morocco and Covergirl, and artists like Johnny Mercer and Tommy Dorsey. Paul lived to be 84. Back down to the main level, let's turn north into the columbarium to find the niche of John Ducette. The stocky character actor with a rich, deep voice kept very busy from the 30s to the 80s, appearing in close to 300 productions. He was one of Hollywood's fastest draws in westerns, finding his niche playing tough guys in productions from The Lone Ranger to True Grit. Equally adept at crime dramas, John co-starred in the 50s series Lock Up. Other films include Patton and Cleopatra. John died from cancer at age 73. Let's make our way back out to the grounds. Northeast across the street from the mausoleum is Section Y. Not far from the Northern Road is a name that would be familiar to you if you saw our Batman special years ago, William Dozier. He was a television writer and producer known particularly for his work in adapting superhero comic books on television. Most notably, he created the first television adaptation of Batman in 1966. The series was known for its distinctly camp style, upbeat music, and humorous execution, targeting a young audience. William also provided those iconic narrations on the show.
Can they avert disaster? Answers tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel.
It ran for 120 episodes and has become a cultural icon. A companion feature film was released in 1966, also produced by William. Around that time, he also produced and narrated another television show featuring a comic book hero, The Green Hornet. It introduced American audiences to Bruce Lee as Kato. William Dozier was also involved in producing films like Slave Girl and Harriet Craig. He lived to be 83, passing away from a stroke in 1991. Straight north is Section CC. Just in from the road near the northwest corner, near Chris Penn, who we previously visited, is his mother, Eileen Ryan. Her career began on stage before moving into television, making appearances on shows like The Twilight Zone, Bonanza, Little House on the Prairie, and more. Her notable film roles include as Marilyn on Parenthood, Grandma on Feast, and in the film At Close Range, she appeared alongside her sons Chris and Sean. Eileen lived to be 94. She rests here alongside her husband, Leo Penn, a noted director, known particularly for his work on television. He directed numerous episodes of shows like Ben Casey, Dr. Kildare, The Virginian, Columbo, Little House on the Prairie, Marcus Welby MD, Matlock, and more. Leo also appeared in front of the camera, acting in films like The Undercover Man and Fall Guy, and also appearing on shows like Ben Casey and The Untouchables. Leo died from cancer at age 77. Not far north of here, close to the statue, is the grave of Mary Wilson. She was a singer, remembered as a founding member of the singing group The Supremes, the most successful Motown act of the 60s and the best charting female group in US history. 12 of the Supremes' singles reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. The group was originally named the Primettes, and Mary sang lead on early tracks like Pretty Baby. Mary sang backing vocals to Diana Ross's lead on some of their biggest hits, like Baby Love and Stop in the Name of Love.
Stop in the name of love, if I break my heart.
Diana Ross left the Supremes in 1970, and Mary sang lead again on songs like Early Morning Love. The Supremes disbanded in 1977, and Mary continued to perform as a solo artist. She was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1988 with the Supremes. Mary died in her sleep from cardiovascular disease at age 76. She rests here with her son, Raphael, who had died in a car accident they were both in which she was only injured. Continuing east, past the statue, is the grave of actress Joan Leslie. Her breakout role was as Velma in 1941's High Sierra alongside Ida Lupino and Humphrey Bogart. She'd go on to have co-starring roles in films like Sergeant York, The Sky's the Limit alongside Fred Astaire, and Yankee Doodle Dandy alongside James Cagney.
Why are you so concerned, Faye Templeton?
Oh, I don't care for Templeton. I'm looking out for you.
Ever think about yourself?
Not much lately. Haven't had time.
And her television appearances include on Murder, She Wrote, Charlie's Angels, and The Incredible Hulk. Joan lived to be 90. Let's continue our journey to the next section east, to the southeast corner of section BB. Just in from the road is the grave of Dick Butkus. He was a famous figure from the world of professional football. He played in the NFL for the Chicago Bears in the 60s and 70s, where he was named 2-time Defensive Player of the Year and was an 8-time Pro Bowler. He was one of the NFL's most celebrated linebackers, and the Butkus Award for linebackers is named in his honor. Dick Butkus was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1979. After retiring from the NFL, he became a familiar face on TV and the movies as an actor, sportscaster, and celebrity endorser. He had regular roles on shows like My Two Dads, Blue Thunder, and Hang Time, and appeared in movies like The Last Boy Scout and Gremlins 2. Dick Butkus died in his sleep at age 80 from a stroke. Southeast across the street is Section V. Here we find the grave of Fortunio Bonanova. He began his career as an opera singer, while he simultaneously worked his way into the movies in the 1920s. Fortunio had supporting roles in some of early Hollywood's most iconic films, including Citizen Kane, Double Indemnity, and An Affair to Remember. On television, he made appearances on shows like My Little Margie, The Abbott and Costello Show, and I Love Lucy. Fortunio died from a cerebral hemorrhage at age 74. Across the street west is Section W. Right near the middle of this lawn is a man whose marker reads, Writer, Scholar, Fisherman. Here lies Ronald MacDougall. As his stone denotes, he was a noted writer in Hollywood for film and television. He wrote the screenplay for the 1945 film noir Mildred Pierce, which earned him an Oscar nomination. Other films include The Naked Jungle, and he co-wrote the 1963 epic Cleopatra. Ronald would also direct a handful of films, including Man on Fire and The World, the Flesh, and the Devil. He died from a heart attack at age 58. Ronald was married to actress Nanette Fabray, who is reportedly buried next to him, though there is no marker for her. The actress and singer came up through the musical theater world before making a splash in the movies and on television. She won a Tony Award for her performance in the Broadway musical Love Life. And her notable film roles include Harper Valley PTA and The Bandwagon. On television, she was Sid Caesar's comic partner in the 50s, and she headlined her own show, Westinghouse Playhouse, in 1961. It was written by her husband. Later in her career, she played Grandma Catherine on One Day at a Time. She lived to be 97, passing away in 2018. Several rows south in this same lawn, we find actress Sally Blane. Her career started as a child during the silent era, including a small role in The Sheik alongside Rudolph Valentino. While she never attained the level of stardom as her sister Loretta Young, who was buried nearby, she did appear in more than 100 film and television productions throughout her career. Her movies include Forbidden Company, Stolen Sweets, and Night of Terror. And she made a few appearances on her sister's show, The Loretta Young Show, in the 50s and 60s. Her other sisters were actresses as well. In fact, all 4 of the Young sisters appeared together in the film The Story of Alexander Graham Bell. Sally died from cancer in 1997 at age 87. She was married to Norman Foster, buried here next to her. The multi-talented Norman was an actor and a director and a writer. He began acting in the early sound era, becoming a leading man to some of the era's biggest actresses, in films like No Limit alongside Clara Bow and Young Man of Manhattan with his first wife, Claudette Colbert. He continued acting regularly, but also began shifting his focus to directing and writing. Notable directorial efforts include Orson Welles' Journey into Fear and several Mr. Moto films. He also directed Disney's Davy Crockett and several episodes of his sister-in-law's show, The Loretta Young Show. Norman lived to be 72. Turning back southwest, let's stop right near the edge of Section H to find the grave of Dick Curtis. He was another of the very busy supporting players in Hollywood, appearing in more than 200 film and television productions from the 20s into the 50s. At 6'3", he often played imposing characters, villains, or heavies, particularly in westerns. He often appeared alongside cowboy heroes like Charles Starrett and William Boyd, aka Hopalong Cassidy. He even made a few TV appearances, including on The Lone Ranger. Dick flexed his comedic muscles as well, appearing alongside the Three Stooges in several films in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. He was just 49 when he died from pneumonia brought on by lung cancer. We arrive now at Section Q, the southernmost section in the cemetery. All the way to the outer wall rests actress Dorothy Sebastian. Her career began in the silent era, in films like A Woman of Affairs and Our Dancing Daughters. Into the talkies, she had notable roles in films like Our Blushing Brides and a starring role in They Never Come Back. Her career faded through the 40s, and her final screen appearances were with Buster Keaton, with whom she had a relationship, on his TV show in 1950. Dorothy was just 53 when she died from cancer. Continuing southwest to Section B, let's pay a revisit to Pinto Colvig, near the eastern end of this section, just in from the road. We first visited Pinto back in 2017, but at that time his grave was unmarked. In 2020, we reached out to Pinto's next of kin, his grandson and great-granddaughter, and coordinated with them to have this marker placed. It was designed by Pinto's great-granddaughter, Courtney, and features an iconic hat that you Disney fans will recognize. We originally wanted to put a silhouette of Goofy on the marker, but Holy Cross wouldn't let us. So we went with his hat. Pinto was both the inspiration for and original voice of Disney's Goofy, who quickly became one of the most popular characters alongside Mickey and Donald.
Oh, the world owes me a living.
Other characters he voiced include Pluto, Sleepy and Grumpy in Snow White, and the Cookie Kid in the Cookie Carnival. Pinto was a human sound effects machine, providing not only voices but yips and howls and other sounds you've heard in numerous Disney cartoons, like The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. His virtuosic vocalizations can also be heard in the novelty track Filbert the Frog.
Unlike other frogs or kittens or dogs, this frog could sing as he'd crow. He went
Prior to Disney, the multi-talented Pinto was also an adept stage performer, musician, clown, and cartoonist himself. And in 1946, he became the first actor to play Bozo the Clown, a role he played for a decade. A lifelong smoker, Pinto died from lung cancer at age 75. Finally, let's head to the midpoint of this same lawn near the Southern Road. Here we find the final resting place of Betty Lynn. You fans of the Andy Griffith Show will remember Betty for her role as Thelma Lou, Barney Fife's girlfriend on the show.
Barney,
He's in there.
I don't want to see him. It's you I want.
You want me?
She would reprise the role in the TV movie Return to Mayberry. She also made appearances on shows like Family Affair and The Magical World of Disney. On the big screen, she played Susan in Mother is a Freshman and Deborah in the original version of Cheaper by the Dozen. Betty Lynn lived to be 95. And that concludes our tour. What are some of your favorite memories of the stars we visited today? Share them in the comments below, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more famous grave tours. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one. I had not one but two interesting cemetery animal encounters at Holy Cross while filming this tour. After saying a quick hello to the turtles and capturing a little video of them, I began to walk away. I stopped and looked back, and to my surprise, one of the turtles had climbed up out of the pond, something I'd never seen before in all my years here, and was literally chasing me down at full turtle speed. This little turtle really wanted to be on camera, I guess, so I'll name her Norma Desmond, ready for her close-up. Farewell, Norma Desmond, the turtle. Then out in the grounds, this random bluebird perched itself on my rearview mirror and really wanted to get in the car to be my co-pilot for the tour. He just hung out with me for quite some time, dancing in the window. I probably should have given him the camera and let him get some nice aerial shots of the cemetery. Mr. Bluebird's not on my shoulder, he's on my rearview mirror.